Hello, hi Sharon. It's so
Hi,
good to see you.
good to see you too. Always.
I'm Ursula Pottinger from Profound Growth, and I'm here with my good friend Sharon. Sharon is a leadership development coach and has a deep background in adult development. And if you don't know anything about me or Profound Growth, we really work with people in regards to leadership, prosperity, and bringing in the heart and the brain. So really making the connection between neuroscience and giving the heart what it wants.
Love it.
So
Great.
today we are going to talk about really the intersection of adult development and neuroscience and why this is important in this really complex, volatile, ever-changing world that we find ourselves in. And just for information, it is November 19th, 2020. I am in the state of Minnesota, where we have just been put under new restricted COVID regulations. So talk about that are especially going to impact the hospitality industry, of which Sharon and I also have a deep background and really have a passion for. So we've just basically restaurants closed again, gyms closed again, schools have been closed for 2 weeks. So talk about complex, volatile, and ever changing, which I think, Sharon, really requires leaders to adopt and adapt a completely different mentality and come from place. So I want to start with you and giving us sort of a highlight of, you know, adult development. What would you like to share, given that we have 15 minutes and this is very big picture, knowing all that, but what do you want to say about adult development?
Well, I think there's enough research now to show us that what got us here won't get us there. And so emerging leaders and leaders need to show up differently and look at the way they're making meaning of the world. And so I've always been fascinated by adult development, and I'm going to focus mostly on adult and not the two stages of younger age humans. And the first stage I want to talk to is the socialized frame of mind. And the socialized frame of mind is what really worked well in the world of manufacturing. You show up to work, you're a team player, you pull your weight, you're aligning with others, you're told what to do, and then you do it. And then you go home, maybe clock out. And the next stage is the self-authoring mind, or the self-authored mind. And in this area, we're able to kind of take a step back and look at things a little bit differently. We're less in the realm of being at the effect of the outside world, waiting to be told what to do, and more in a place of where we realize we have some choice and we can make our own choices. We kind of have our own compass and can lead our way.
Mm-hmm.
And then the third stage, a very, very small percentage, I haven't looked at the data lately, but I think it's around 1% of adult population is in this stage of adult development, and it's the self-transforming mind. And the self-transforming mind is when we really can take a step back, and this is the kind of leader we really want to aspire to be and have more of in the world to get us through these really complex and ambiguous times. But it's someone who's making with a self-transforming mind instead of a self-authored mind. And what that means is they're more of a meta leader, and they're a leader who leads to learn versus
Wow.
versus a more self-authored leader who learns to lead. Sorry. So a self-authored is someone who learns to lead, and a self-transformed is a leader who leads to learn and can
Wow.
look at other perspectives, is truly an observer
Yes.
of themselves and all that is around them. Taking
Well, and
different
what really, when I talk about, self-transforming, I mean, that sounds so beautiful. Because what it really reminds me of, it's really a person, a leader that is able to take their own personal agenda and much of their own ego out of the equation, because they want to learn together with others to kind of make it a better thing, whatever the thing is, make it a better hotel experience, make it a better tech experience, a better leadership experience, team experience, so that everybody learns together, which is, when I look at the world right now,
Yes.
it seems such a pipe dream, given how split everyone is on, this black and white and right and left and red and blue and whatever else is going on. Where this really, the self-transformational aspect, feels like this is where we should be as human beings. So you were talking about the observer, which sort of brings me to the neuroscience.
Right.
What we know about the brain as a system, the complex, as we say, monstrous complex system that the brain is. But we do know that when we get all the pieces of the system working together, just like in a team, we are more able to be that. We are even more able to be self-authored, let alone looking at self-transformational. That when the pieces of the brain work together and then work together with the heart and the body, we get to a place of observer mind that really speaks to integration and looking at all the various pieces at play and making choices that are very different from what I am understanding about socialized, where we are a little bit more at the mercy of what comes at us, from the external.
Right. And that's where coaches come in, is to really help people come from or change their come from place and how they show up in the world. So come from socialized to a self-authored mind. Most of the population is somewhere in between the two. And there's, like I mentioned earlier, very little at the self-transforming mind. And it's interesting because a lot of organizations, tech and other, and also hospitality industry, really provide a lot of programs around leadership development, leadership organizational programs to really help their leaders develop and grow. But what that does is it's just putting in new files, skills, and knowledge into the internal operating system of the leader. And it's not really transforming the operating system, which is what we need to move to the next level and to be able to handle this, VUCA world, volatility, uncertainty, complex and ambiguous world that we are now going into with
Yeah.
COVID and post-COVID.
Yeah, no, totally. That makes sense. At Be Above Leadership, we call it rearranging the deck chairs of the Titanic. So basically saying, the organization, the team is the Titanic, it's heading in a certain direction. And so what needs to change is the direction of the ship. There needs to be a change in course direction of the whole complex system of the ship. And just moving the chairs around and putting pretty pillows in is ultimately not changing the direction of the ship or of the captain or anything. So I think I really see that importance, because people talk a lot about, we're going back to when we're back to normal. Well, I actually don't believe there is such a thing. I
No.
think we will not go back. I don't think we can go back to normal. So much has changed that will require us to be different human beings, more conscious human beings.
Yeah.
And so again, adult development, neuroscience, and then that whole conversation around consciousness really fit together, beautifully. Because the more conscious a person becomes, the more they are able to self-author, because they're more of an observer, and then even moving higher up into the consciousness realm will eventually become more self-transformational. So I'm curious. So if you have a leader who is in the socialized category, what would be one thing that would get them from there into self-authorship?
I think good coaching and also a little bit of advising, education around adult development theory and where they are on the continuum. And once they understand that and they want to grow and change, they're open to that, then really going in and coaching with the neuroscience piece. So really helping them to differentiate so that they can link and be integrated. And once they show up into the world as an integrated human being who is able to be creative, be logic, tap into their logic, tap into their intuition, and be just more consciously aware and more of the observer that you spoke to earlier, then they're able to lead, and they can't go back. They can't go back to that
Yeah.
socialized mind.
Yeah,
They have
no, really
yeah,
what you're talking about, I think, is really a lot about neuroplasticity, because I think in both the socialized mindset as well as in self-authorship, there are certain neural pathways that have been wired in that either make something possible or not possible. And
yes.
so really knowing, from research that the brain can change, we can rewire the brain, really speaks to this concept of making transformational changes that are permanent. And that really is about laying new neural pathways.
Mhm.
And you're right. I mean, in coaching, certainly the biggest piece is awareness.
Yes.
Once you are aware that this is what's going on, this is what your brain is doing.
Mhm.
This is the road well traveled. This is what you've been doing for 5, 7, 10, 15 or more years, and therefore it's just become the roadway.
Right.
Once you know that, and then saying, okay, what do we want instead, then I think the rewiring into something else, into self-authorship, for example, becomes possible. But we do have to start with awareness, knowing where we are.
Yes, absolutely. And what we call that in the world of psychology is the conditioned tendency that has been created for a reason since you were young, just based on your environment. And so disrupting that conditioned tendency to create, or by creating a new neural pathway, which takes practice. We create practices around that so that you can do that. That helps you move into this new pattern in how you show up and who you are in the world. And so it's exactly what you're talking about.
Yeah, no, and I like the way, I love the way of disruption. Now, here is, I think, the tricky part around all that is that I think many leaders that lead teams and then lead organizations often don't have the stomach for that kind of disruption and for that kind of radical change.
Right.
I think they look at leadership development as something to be crossed off of the list. And please forgive me, whoever, if you're listening and you are not that, it's really a big generalization. But I have looked at many hotel organizations where there is so much demand on the daily just coping, that looking at radical disruption and transformation, it's just not on the radar screen, often because time and money is not there. And I think post-COVID, I think people know it's needed, but how will they generate the resources to make that possible?
Right. Well, it's really interesting. If you take this approach with the adult development and with the neuroscience into an organization such as the hospitality industry, where, by the way, turnover is, I think, 73%. Pre-COVID, it was 73%. And you want to show up in the new world, which is going to be a new world post-COVID, as we are discovering. You're going to have to make drastic changes, or you will be left behind. And so it's all about really taking our current talents and bringing them up to retain them, versus churning and burning constantly, because what got us here is not going to get us there.
Yeah, no, and the other thing that this reminds me of is, I think post-COVID particularly, is going from just survival to thriving.
Right.
And really taking a long view of leadership development and saying, okay, there are certain things that we need right now, and we need to look at the next 5 years. And what does this organization want? Who do we want to be? And what can that look like?
Right.
Everybody says, your human beings are the biggest capital, turnover costs tons of money. I mean, the numbers that people invest in hiring and then letting go and training and all that is staggering. only to lose someone when they are not ready to be a self-authored leader at a minimum, but are, just in that first socialized category. And then I hear, people complaining, well, they should think for themselves, and, they constantly come for advice, but not being that takes development for sure. It takes change and development.
Right. And it's really not complicated. It's complex.
It's complex, but not complicated.
It's quite simple. It is really quite simple. It's just a
So,
different way of looking at the future.
yeah, I really like. So what is one piece of advice that you would have to for leaders listening?
Ooh, one piece of advice. I think really understanding this piece of adult development theory and looking at where you are as an individual and digging deep into your own personal operating system to really understand. I think if you're telling me one, so.
Oh, no, that's just a figure of speech.
Right, okay, good. But really, it's the awareness piece. It's the awareness of where am I, who am I, how am I showing up in the world, and where am I on this continuum? Because if I'm a leader in the socialized frame of mind, because we know what that means now, and I am at the effect of the external world, how do I grow? How do I change? How do I continually grow as a human being so that I can lead this organization into this new world?
Well, and back again, I find this so appropriate as a topic for right now, because of COVID, we are seemingly really at the mercy of the external world.
Right.
And it's both real and seemingly. I mean, it is real that hotels, hospitality, for example, other industries, businesses are closing because of restrictions, huge unemployment, and just generally the suffering, the economic suffering of people is something that is real. And that external has an impact on stress, has an impact on the brain, has an impact on how clearly we are thinking about the future. So I think if nothing else, at this moment in time, leader of organizations, big and small, should be thinking about, how is stress impairing our high-level functioning right now? What is the vision that we have post-COVID that will create an organization that is led by and run by people that are in the self-authorship category, and really thinking about that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And you have to do that by being aware of where you are right now.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, that was really fascinating. Thank you so much. I hope anyone who is listening to it, you have been hopefully getting a little bit of an insight of what might be next for you personally or for your team. So we hope that you enjoyed it. If you liked it, please like it on YouTube. And if you need information either about Sharon or myself and the work that we do, you can contact me at ursula@profoundgrowth.com. And if you have questions for Sharon, I will pass them on to Sharon. So thanks again for listening. And thanks, Sharon, very much. Really appreciate it.
Thank you. I love our talks. So fun.